delivering action from a place of grounded presence that's a superpower. That's when, you know, the legendary Sifu that can know you're about to strike, you know, these myths that he'll know you're about to strike before he's operating in present time while you're thinking.
So how do you perceive timing life? If you have a big life decision, how do you time it right?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Budo Brothers podcast. You got Erik.
And Kyle.
And I am reborn. I got over COVID. I had managed to dodge it for over 2 years. And it was so funny because I was talking smack to some of my coworkers saying, yeah, you know, still, I must have great immunity.
Yeah.
And I was getting cocky and boom.
Got
hit. And it was funny because it was almost like it was timed. It was almost like the universe was like, you know, you're getting a little confident with your whole ability to beat COVID, and
no more.
It found me. But man, it feels so good. Anytime I find that I get sick, it's actually really good to reflect on how for granted we take our everyday health.
Yes.
When we're just not in pain, you just are. You know, when you're sick, I'm like, I just want to be that.
Right.
I want to be healthy and feel good, and I'm never going to take that for granted again, you know, when you're in the shits.
For sure. And this weekend was your first weekend out, and we got to watch some of the UFC fights, and there's that crazy one, Chandler versus El Kukui, Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
And that was one of the sickest knockouts I've seen in a long time. If you have not watched the UFC fights or watched any highlights from it, watch that one knockout. Just type in knockouts from that last fight, and wow, it was insane.
Timed perfectly.
Yes.
Like perfect timing. And it's funny, he said after the fight was over, he's like, I didn't even train it. It just happened. Yeah. And it just happened, and it was perfect. And that got me thinking, if you don't train something and things just happen, like, is it luck or is the timing perfect? Is it the hard work that you put in that allowed that opening to come into your reality in the first place? What is it?
Man, that's a tough one. Is it mental preparedness?
Yeah.
Is it the ability to adapt on the fly? Because when you reach mastery, right, you're able to make micro adjustments in the present moment.
Yes.
Right? Think about when you get a drill in martial arts for the first time. The first time you're like counting, like bop, bop,
yes.
bop, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And then the next time you're but like if you've been doing that consistently, you're working on different things like your rotation, your all these little micro things within the skill itself, right? Because the rest is programmed. So maybe he just saw that there and had the awareness to put foot to chin. Boom.
Yeah. And when you watch it in slow-mo, it is poetry. Like it is the perfect timing on a perfect opening. And I wonder what that must have felt like. Did time slow down for him where it's just now? Boom, and his chin goes into his brain. You know, like,
and he probably couldn't have been thinking about it. It just would have happened.
Right. Because if you're thinking, you're already a step behind. You're in thought. You're not in the present moment.
Mm-hmm. And when you try to time something perfectly, the opposite effect ends up happening. Because you're in your thoughts, you're trying to figure it out.
Yes.
Every detail you're trying to sort out in your mind, that you don't pay attention to the cues that are happening in real time.
Yeah, exactly. And even like how it all went down. And if you're just back to your point of bringing thought in it, you're likely to not be able to perform. Good example. How many times have you caught something that was falling out of a shelf, or had a reflex where it was complete, pure, present reaction? It was response to a stimulus without thought that triggered a movement in your body with no very, very millisecond delays.
Yeah.
If I told you, Kyle, go open that cupboard and there's going to be 3 vitamin bottles that are going to fall out of the cupboard and you have to catch all 3.
Yeah.
So not a chance. So you're now okay. I'm gonna get ready. Okay, so if the first one comes, I'm gonna use the left and then try and catch 2 with the right, and you'll never do it. But if you're not in your head, and I've done it, and I wish I got it on video where I was like, holy shit!
Right.
It was so just wah, 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 and instantaneous, and it was no thought, just action, and I've listened to so many instructors talk about presence and delivering action from a place of grounded presence. That's a superpower. That's when, the legendary Sifu that can know you're about to strike, these myths that he'll know you're about to strike before he's operating in present time while you're thinking.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Now, when it comes to like timing in life, like everybody's been there where they wanted to ask somebody out and like I gotta wait for this. Okay, I'm gonna do it after school. Okay, yeah. All right. When she walks down this hallway, I'm gonna walk out and then I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna say this and then this will work. And then it just never even happens. And you find out a week later that somebody else asked her out and she's just going out with somebody else. Yeah. So, how do you perceive timing life? If you have a big life decision, how do you time it right?
I can see the argument that there is never the perfect time. There's optimal times. Like there's there's times that are better than others, but you can convince yourself why now is not the time and why you've got all these loose ends in your life that you still haven't tied, that now is not a good time. And I constantly battle that. When is the right time to make major moves?
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to jump.
Right.
And easier said than done when you're on the ledge.
So how do you motivate yourself to jump because you said it's optimal. Like how do you try to get the optimal way, or do you just jump regardless of the outcome, or how do you participate?
It's tough, man, because I go back and forth on this because a good example where I took the leap of faith and left my cushy engineering job to go start a business, and I convinced myself that now their timing's perfect. You know what? Got my PEng. I don't need this job anymore. I'm smart. I'm employable. I got nothing to lose. And my timing, and I was so convinced that my timing was so good. And in hindsight, the timing couldn't have been worse. I submitted my resignation the same month that oil prices started crashing in 2014. And that brought our local economy to its knees. Right. That's just 2014. We had a local heavy, deep layoffs, recession, 100,000 people laid off last month. Like, while everyone else was having a great old time, Alberta was in some hard times.
Right.
And man, I look back at it and the timing was wrong, even though I was so sure that it was right. And then, but again, the timing, it actually was right in the grand scheme of things, because I progressed and developed so much as a human through the hard times that I mentally was in, feeling like a failure, feeling like I screwed up, watching my colleagues coast through this with nice salaries, me going broke down to my bottom dollar, fixing fences for cash. Man, it was an ego-crushing experience. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And how many times it's almost cliche. People that go through hardship, once they get through it, they're like, man, that was, how do you know you need to go through something? Because you're going through it.
Right. And one thing I find when it comes to timing, and you see it just as people age, when you're younger, you have nothing to lose, right? So you're willing to jump in and try any situation because you know you got nothing to lose. Like you are unhinged. You can bounce back. You have no fear.
Yeah.
You're young, right?
Yeah.
As you get older, you start accumulating these things and accumulating relationships and accumulating finances and living a certain way and getting comfortable. And then all of a sudden it's like, damn, I don't want to lose this.
Attachment.
And then it becomes a battle, fear of attachment versus like, it's almost a fear of success, right? Like you're attaching to an old way that you don't want to lose any of it. But at the same time, like by holding on to this, you're not getting to this other place. Like because you cannot detach to attach to this new thing that's sitting in front of you.
Yes.
And I just notice as we get older, the harder it is to just detach, evolve, change, shift, grow, because there's a certain fear.
Yes.
Of fear of losing things, right? And it's
a powerful force.
Yes. And do you want to lose it, right? Like when is growing enough? Like, do you ever, is there such thing as growing too much? I think you should always be growing or you start dying, but is there a point where you evolve or change so much where you're just now in protection mode all the time?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to keep what you've gained, and that's a trap. That's a trap. Because, and you see people fall into this trap of more, and growth at all cost. And before you know it, you've got this empire that requires protecting.
Yeah.
And just like the cycles of empires that, you expand your military. Well, if we got this military, we better use it.
Right.
And then before you know it, you got bases all over the world. And that, like this is a story that is old as the test of time, that has been told over and over and over again. The rising power expands its influence, and now all of a sudden you're not generating, these military bases aren't revenue generating systems.
Yeah.
I could go back to the Romans. This is the same thing. Like they've built up so much that it now requires so many resources in order to protect what has been built. At the point where it starts to flip is when that cost benefit starts declining, and that's part of the cycle.
Sports are a perfect example of this also. Take hockey, basketball, fighting, like any sport. If you get up and you get a lead and you all of a sudden change your team dynamic to be like, all right, we have a lead, let's switch to defense. We're only playing defensively. We're guarding the net. We're protecting. We're just on defense the whole time. That rarely works, or else that would always be the script that every team use.
Yeah.
Get up, switch 100% to defense.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Like maybe you can be slightly more defensive.
Yeah.
But you can't switch 100% to protect this. I got to protect the lead. I got to protect these resources. It's a scarce mindset, right? Whereas like you have to be trying, you have to be growing, you have to be learning, you have to be evolving, you have to be fighting for like what it is you were put on the planet to do. Like that's it. And so it's such a fine balance with timing. And if you were to take it to the micro level, even timing in conflict, if you were always focusing on protecting yourself or what the person's going to do or how they're going to hit me, you'll never win the fight. Like you have to be, you can only train yourself, you can only control your movements, and then at that point you just have to be in the fight. And
timing is such a key ingredient. You always hear instructors that we've worked with, they talk precision, angle, timing. There's always, it's always in a mix of necessities. You need to have good timing.
Right.
You need to be able to slip the jab and have that counter timed perfectly. Boom, lands. Boom. It's timing is such a huge part of winning a fight and winning in life.
Yeah. And even if you look at knockouts, sometimes it looks like the person isn't even throwing the punch that hard or the kick that hard.
Yeah.
And it's just like they timed it exactly in the right place at the right time.
Bing.
And then it's like effortless. And it's like you watch these people who have these unmasked these crazy amount of success. It looks effortless because they were just right place, right time. And some of it's luck maybe, but a lot of it is just always being prepared for your moment. We have a saying, it's always prime time.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you don't know when you're going to get called to the plate. And when you do, you got to be able to perform.
Yeah. And always prime time is such a good pillar of our evolution. I don't know when we came up with it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a long time ago.
But it is always prime time. When we had 150 followers, guess what? We're editing our photo shoots. We're chopping up our vids because it's always prime time. We just treated everything as if we're in the limelight. This is our time. And it's always our time. It's always prime time.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about timing that much if you're always on it.
Yes, true. That's true. If you're always showing up with full presence, full energy, full commitment.
Yeah.
It's always prime time. And that's goes to your work, right? Like sometimes we have that million subscriber principle when it comes to products. Like every product we deliver, we're like, okay, not that anybody's different, but what if the person that is on the other end of this has 1 million followers and is going to broadcast them unboxing the package? Right? And it's just like, it's always prime time. You always have to be ready for that moment because you get exposed to 1 million people and your product sucks.
Shows up in some shitty bag.
And they're broadcasting it live to everybody. Like,
right.
Yeah. Whereas if you were on point and hit it out of the park and they're broadcasting it live to everybody, you win a lot of new customers.
And every single product that goes out our door is unboxing ready. Or it doesn't leave the door.
Yeah. And like we miss.
Of course. It's impossible to bat at 100%.
Yeah.
But when we do screw up, we don't stop at anything to fix it.
Right. Definitely. We're definitely better than those crappy drop shipping companies.
Yes.
They don't care at all.
No, it's a numbers game. And scale. And sell this cheap shit and it is delivered 2-3 weeks later and Lord knows who it's from. No one inspected it. Who knows what you're even getting? That's a real thing.
And we're going to wrap this up, but I want to kind of end with, as far as like North America goes, or like just like where we're at in timing.
Yeah.
Like where do you think we're at in the cycle? Like, do you think we are growing as a country or as North Americans, or do you think we're shrinking? Do you think that we're dominant? Do you think we're losing weight? Like what do you think?
I think we're on the decline.
Yeah.
And I think not as macro, but just as far as business cycles go, the crazy thing about business cycles is they cycle. And back out 2020, which literally was a blip flash crash in the markets, it's been up and to the right. And I mean, yes, we've had a long, painful correction here recently, but I still think that we need to go through the cycle of cleansing of
excess.
Yeah, and just you can see it. The signals are everywhere. The signals are everywhere if you're looking for them. It could be there's just so many signs that we're closer to a correction than we are the next up leg in growth. There's going to be another gangbuster boom. That's what they do. It booms and busts and booms and busts. We've been booming and we're getting closer to a bust. I really that is every genetic piece in my body's telling me that we're closer to a bust than the next boom. And that's really, it's tough for us because we're trying to time things and allocating capital and investing in products and investing in machinery. And do we take on debt? Do we sell equity? Do we raise cash? How fast do we grow? Do we keep just doing it the same? Like, this is where we're strategically going through some choppy waters that are tough to navigate, but our boat's in the water, so we have to navigate it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we were saying a quote before we did this, that there's no bad timing. There's no good timing. There's only optimal timing. And I really believe that, because time something badly, as long as you're not dead, that was a lesson. And you're going to take every one of those learning tools and implement that into your life, and you become bigger, badder, stronger, faster, better, no matter what. And if you timed it perfectly, guess what? If it's prime time, you nailed it, and then you're knocking it out of the park. So just trying to find the optimal timing just is it. But I think it takes away the stress of timing things right, when you're like, there is no wrong decision. No matter what I choose, there's only an optimal way.
Right.
Budo Brothers Challenge.
Set up no-lose situations, right? And we've talked about this on prior episodes, but it is such an unlock where you say, I'm going to try this, and if I fail, I'm going to grow, and if I succeed, I'm going to win. You can't lose. You can't lose. And set things up so that, hey, if this doesn't go right, you got your backup plan, and this is what's going to happen. This is when it's good. And be willing to abort the plan.
Yeah.
Abort the plan, because you can only project. The further into the future you project, the more uncertainty there is. It's just like weather. We know, well, tomorrow it's probably going to, whatever the weatherman says is going to be what we see. Yeah. Rain, clouds, sun. 2 weeks out, we can kind of follow the trend because of these weather patterns, and El Nino's doing this, and we're in this big cyclical drought, So, but the further out, you want to talk about what the weather is next year, sorry.
Yeah.
Can't.
No idea.
And so I can't plan around that. And that's where we get back to that adaptability. So set up no lose situations and be adaptable.
Yes. Love it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit us up on all our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, Insta.
Budo Brothers on anything.
And as always, make sure you're on our email list, because that's how you know about
something news coming up at the end of this
month. No cats out of the bag.
Okay, hopefully anyways.
Yes.
All right, until next week.
See you then.